So welcome back, drifters. It's a brand new day, and today we're working on the 67 Mustang. What we're going to be doing is working on pulling out the floor supports, and hopefully, if the day goes well enough, welding in the new ones. So wish me luck. Now you might be wondering about all that wood chapping. Well, basically I was just trying to get the car level. I've been adjusting the jacks and trying to get them just about as good as I can, and I think I've got it pretty close. Now it's slightly off level, but that could just be where I've got it sitting. But you know, I think it's good enough that we can move forward for now. So let me show you the main reason why I'm worried about leveling this car. There's enough flex in the chassis right now that I can literally lift this whole front clip about a ½ inch. So basically I got this thing as level as I can using wood blocks, and it's just basically resting there to support the front end of the chassis. The problem is that the angle of this thing's doing, I'm not sure which way is going to be perfectly straight, but we're just going to have to hope that we've got it close for now. I redid the measurements and everything was looking pretty decent. Okay, so take everything I just said and forget it, because I just spent all of yesterday sitting down in this chair over here, researching and overanalyzing and overthinking every little detail about this build. And I think I was just having one of my OCD moments, but basically it comes down to this whole thing of to jig or not to jig. And I really don't want to jig if I don't have to. And so I was like paranoid about my measurements and whether or not the frame has too much slack and all that. It's just driving me nuts. So what I ended up doing is I broke down. I paid $60 and got a laser level. So I've got this thing set up here. I know this is not the best setup, but you could see here it gives you a good line to measure from. So now you can see the laser and it gives you an exact representation of where the measurements are. So the laser runs all the way through the car, and then I can take each measurement point. Now the first couple of measurements were not the greatest, so I had to do some adjustments. What I ended up doing was shimming these jacks using a combination of wood and sheet metal, and now we've got this thing set up to where all the measurements are pretty much dead on. So now when I get these measurements, obviously I'm adjusting because I've got 9 here instead of 13. But all of these measurements are extremely close to what they should be. But then it came to doing these measurements, these crossways ones, and I had to come up with a solution for that. So I don't like being repetitive with the content, but this is one of those things that it's super important that I get this right, because if this thing is angled one way or another and it's not just perfectly dead on, we're gonna have a lot of problems, and I may end up having to redo stuff, and I don't want to do that. So to get some of these diagonal measurements, I'm gonna have to use what's called a tram bar. Now that tool is like $200-300, right, for a decent one. So if you know me, I'm kind of cheap. So what I'm gonna end up doing is making one. I got a bunch of square tubing. I've got some like rod steel that we're gonna weld together, so that way we can take these measurements from, you know, diagonally and make sure that we have the right amount, but it's also gonna be adjustable. So hopefully we can get those measurements and know for a fact that those are correct. Because when we're replacing these frame rails, we want to take the diagonal measurements to make sure that it's in the right position. So yeah, that's what we're doing now. So basically what I've got going on here is I've got some like steel tubing. We're just going to cut this to length because this is going to be the vertical measurement. So basically this thing is going to stick up from the ground into the point, and we're going to measure between 2 of these points. So we can literally just drag the tape over the top of this thing and catch it on the other side. Now this is going to be extendable. Basically I've got a small square tubing, a big square tubing, and now it's telescoping. So we can literally just get the measurement we need, clamp it down, hold it in place, get the measurements, unclamp it, and adjust. So it's very simple. It's obviously not a perfect tool, but it should work. So the only thing I really got to do is just cut this thing and weld it on there. So let's do that real quick. So I just measured this thing. We're going to go about 14 inches on each side. That should give us enough height to where we can at least get close and fit under the lowest point. So yeah, I'm just gonna get to cutting and welding. Ah, son of a bitch. Doing this with these gloves is terrible. Okay, cool. Got the rods. Onto the welder. So here's another cool use I found for the laser level. I can tell when this is perfectly level.
What are you welding?
I'm gonna weld this real quick. Just look away for a sec.
Yep.
Okay, you can look.
Oh, look at you're making your own. Too cheap ass to go buy one.
The tram bar. Yeah. Guess how much this cost me?
$15.
Yeah, about. Okay, so here's an example of how this tram bar works. This is not a real tram bar, but you know what I mean. Basically, I can move this thing in and out. I'm going to try to line this thing up as best I can. And then once I got the 2 points diagonally, which is basically that floor support up there and the front of this frame rail over here, we'll take the measurement and then we'll do it diagonally the other way. These measurements are going to be the ones that are important because when we put in the new floor supports, we need to make sure we get the exact same measurement here. These are just going to be super important that we do this right, so I'm going to try to do this real quick. That should hold that in place, and now I can take my measurement. So I'm getting a reading of about 59 and 3/4, looks like. Give or take. So about 59 and 3/4 is what I'm getting diagonally. So now technically, if these were about the same, I should be able to line it up going this way with the same reading. So the other measurement I need is from center of that hole, and it runs all the way to this lower grease joint right here. So for this side, I got a measurement of 41 inches. So that's 41 inches for the driver's side. Now I gotta go do the other side. 41 inches on this side too. Perfect. That's perfectly square. Now this next one runs all the way from the front of the rear frame rail to this ball joint, and I've got just the right number. 88 7/8. Driver's side, same story. Okay, so it's kind of hot. And I've just spent the last 2 hours doing measurements yet again. I didn't film too much of it because I don't want to be repetitive. Let me show you how many measurements I took. So I literally took all of those and all of these. And I'm fairly certain that we're good. So to say that I overthink things is probably an understatement here. I overthink way too much. But I think we're good. I'm leaving it on the jack stands the way I have it shimmed. This thing's straight. Everything looks good. So I guess I gotta work on getting those floor supports out. I just think I'm gonna have to push that till tomorrow. So yeah, well, let's get to it tomorrow. All right, so I'm having a little bit of a late start today, but it doesn't matter. We're in here. Let's get this thing cut out. The only thing is I'm only gonna do one side at a time because I don't want to mess up the position of this cross member. So we're just gonna remove this piece. We're gonna leave this cross member in there connected to the other side. And then we're gonna take a bunch of measurements before we actually cut this out. And then, yeah, we should be good. So you can see each one of these is a spot weld that I'm gonna have to cut out. I've got a little spot weld cutter. Down here is where I'm gonna have to grind a little bit because this was stitch welded. But the measurement I'm gonna take is I'm gonna measure from this edge to this edge. So when we put the new piece in, this is going in exactly the same spot because they're the exact same length. We just need to make sure that it gets put on the same spot here. So now the other spot we gotta take care of is right here. These are 3 spot welds connecting that cross member. So we'll have to get those suckers off, and then we should be able to get this thing free. So the only problem is there's not really a lot of space to work with down here, so this is gonna be fun. There we go. All right. Wow. Woo! Get that sucker out of here. Well, I can't see shit, but now you can see why we removed this. It looked nice on this side, but look at how pitted and rusted out this section is. All that water that got trapped in there over the years has just done a number on this. So I'm going to have to actually patch most of this because this is pitted pretty damn deep. I mean, I can grind it down, but then we're going to be working with a lot thinner metal. So, yeah, that's not exactly what I wanted to find under here. But we got one off, so I'm going to go take a look at what we got on the other side. Holy cow. That was a lot harder than it looked. Problem is just not having space under there and then trying to get the sparks to go somewhere where it's not going to catch something on fire and just... Whew, it doesn't help that it's hot too. But, hey, we got it out. So now what I got to do is I got to try to fix up some of that rust, see just how deep it is. I'm guessing it's pretty deep. So I may have to get another bulkhead and replace that section, but we'll see. We'll see. So one thing that I never really thought about when it comes to doing this kind of restoration stuff and whatnot is that you're always going to get rust and shit in your face and like all over your back. And the worst part is that when you're laying on the ground, all the dirt just kind of goes, oh yeah, right in my face. It's right exactly where I wanted it. Yes, that's what I wanted. And all down my back and down my ass crack and everywhere else that you don't want it. I mean, look at that. It's everywhere. We got it over there. Big old pile over there. I mean, minus the sweat. Jesus Christ. It's like everywhere. The dirt and rust is no joke. But anyway, I grinded this thing back and you can see just how deep some of these pits are. They're pretty rough. And obviously a lot of this is going to have to get cut out. Only problem is I'm filming this on a Friday. The metal place that I normally go is closed till Monday. And I'm running out of time. So what I got here is this nifty little like gauge checker. Now, I just put this thing on the metal and it's somewhere between 14 and an eighth. An eighth is too big and 14 is too small. So I'm guessing it's like maybe 12 gauge? I don't know. This thing doesn't have a 12 gauge on here. So I'm going to have to check that and see what I can find at the store. But this will at least get us somewhere close to where we need to be. The thickest sheet they have here is 14 gauge. That's sad.